From the Emirates over to the Allianz Arena on this big Champions League night that we are building up to 2-2 as things stand. Arsenal, many saying, with the best possible chance that they have now in a while to be reaching to the semi-finals of the Champions League. In their way are the German reigning champions. They've conceded the league though. But going forward, what is to happen with Bayern Munich in a season which has been full of turmoil for them? That is something that this night is going to determine now for the German giants. Shane Dias joining me here as we build up to this mouth-watering clash between Arsenal, Bayern Munich 2-2 as things stand after the first leg. Could have been 3-2 had it not been for a contentious penalty decision that did not go Arsenal's way, and they'll be, not very pleased with what had happened over then. But moving forward now, you'll have to forget what had happened in London over now to Germany, where the decision will now be made as to who goes forward.
And I think you're talking about it not only being their best chance to make it to the semis, it's also one of their best chances they've had in recent history of actually beating Bayern. Because otherwise it will become a bit of a running joke.
5-1.
Exactly. Arsenal draw Bayern. Oh, it's okay. You'll get thrashed. You'll get sent packing. Goodbye, good night. That's it. This time around though, and truth be told, I was a little surprised that they didn't end up winning the game at home, because they did kind of squander the initiative, and I was very surprised because again, this is not the same Bayern of maybe even 3-4 years back. This is a Bayern that are, they've seeded the Bundesliga. They're not going to be winning a trophy unless they win the Champions League this year. So it's definitely a transitionary team, and unfortunate is that they've not even been able to make a clean cut, because Thomas Tuchel will only be leaving at the end of the season. The players who they want to get rid of, maybe 2-3 of them, also only going to be leaving till the end of the season. So very much transitionary. Arsenal though also finding themselves at an interesting time, because their own form seems to have nosedived. They're coming off in this match of a 2-0 loss to Aston Villa, which is far from ideal in preparations, no matter what anyone says.
The big challenge though for Arsenal right now is, and while it was being said, and that there are people in the footballing quarters who still believe that Arsenal still have a very good chance against Bayern, but
and they do.
The one thing that's changed from the first leg match that we saw is that match against Aston Villa, and that could possibly be that mental shock that Arsenal wouldn't have wanted. We know, and we were discussing a couple of days back as well, how Arsenal failed to cope up in these pressure situations. Something similar that happened in the league last year. We saw a drastic loss of form after they
right
drew at the end after they drew to West Ham, then they drew to Liverpool, then of course went ahead and lost to teams like Manchester City, Newcastle, Brighton. Nothing went their way, and now everyone fears, and there is that sentiment around the Emirates right now that possibly it is the same thing happening all over again, and that's the little bit of a change in complexion that a few days has done to this fixture now, if you ask me.
Absolutely. And obviously, you see, these kind of fixtures, they're not really always decided on form. It's two top sides that are going up against each other, and if you go by the pure numbers, it's a very even Stevens match so far, because again, on aggregate, it's 2-2, everything to play for, right? You're not only, there's no away goals factor here, so that doesn't really matter. And you know that whoever wins this, it's simple, they're through. A 1-1 draw ain't going to be enough, 3-3 won't matter, it's going to be going into extra time. But I think, and one thing we always try to look at is what exactly are the betting odds going like for both teams. Not because we can place bets, but because you want to see where exactly it is that the experts feel this match could potentially be going. And again, the betting odds that you have actually have Bayern as the slight favourites. Because again, 3-4 betting odds for a Bayern victory, but for an Arsenal win, it's at about 21-20. So they're not really expecting an Arsenal win, and it's very surprising because you consider that this is a Bayern team that, as I say, they're a bit beleaguered. They lost out.
Look at the form as well. Last 5 games, they've lost 2 games. Again, their form, as we were discussing as well, home form especially, you almost sort of concede the match, especially on a Champions League night. If you're traveling away to Bayern, that it is going to be an uphill task.
Well,
not quite the case this year. Not quite the case this year because of how patchy Bayern have been, and again, they just lost the week this weekend. So, on a psychological level, if you were to compare the two teams, they're both coming from shocks, let's say. Arsenal knowing that, that they're now 2 points behind in the Premier League, and this is probably a more, I wouldn't say realistic, but then this probably becomes like a wake-up call for them that, they need to probably refocus, Premier League, probably, you can only be keeping an eye on it from the corner of your eye, but maybe refocus now on the Champions
It's
League.
ironic you mentioned that because Bayern are also doing the same thing.
Exactly.
They're doing the same thing, but one disadvantage that I think Bayern are having is they're going to be missing key players. I mean, if you look at the unavailabilities, Arsenal don't have any. There were some worries or murmurs about Martin Odegaard, but he's actually been fine. He's going to be playing. There's no problems there. Yes, there was a bit of a niggle, but it's not going to be serious enough to keep him out. However, Bayern Munich have two unavailabilities or recent unavailabilities as far as injuries are concerned. No Serge Gnabry, who again was very, very good in that first leg. Something tends to happen to that man when he plays in London. I don't quite know. Kingsley Coman, a useful, let's say, sub option to have on the bench. Also not going to be available. The biggest loss, if you ask me though, no Alphonso Davies. Again, he had picked up another yellow card in the last match. That added up to his tally, and that means he's missing this match as well. So that's a big loss. Again, not having a Davies is a bit of a problem because again, he gives them so much on the overlap.
Yes. So those overlapping runs from the left.
His overlaps are next level. One of the best, I think, fullbacks in the world right now. Not having him going to be a bit of a miss. And I really hope, I think the Bayern tend to be at times their own worst enemies. If you go back to that match which they had against Leverkusen, which was basically a title-winning or a title-deciding match, Tuchel decided to go for a 3 at the back to kind of rival Leverkusen. And Leverkusen reveled in that. They relished it and then thrashed them 3-0. So I really hope he doesn't really do anything silly like that. Stick to their strengths, stick to the formation that works best for them. And considering it's a home game, I do think they start slight favourites, but only slight.
Yeah, it's the only reason, the fact that, the match is now going to be played at the Allianz Arena. Even though Arsenal, credit to them, they weren't looking at any pushovers as we've seen in the past. They competed toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich on the night. Again, I'll go back and say possibly deserved a penalty over there. Could have been a third goal also, and that would have really changed how the two teams would have started this match then as far as the second leg goes. But the fact that even though it's been patchy form for Bayern of late, 2 losses for them as well on the way as far as the last 5 matches are concerned, and it's not been an ideal season for them overall. The home factor somehow, you know how loud the Allianz Arena can really get, and I just go back to the time that this draw was being made, because Arsenal was still top of the league. The one thing all Arsenal fans or even experts were saying that for Bayern to not really go past and an Arsenal to do what looked like a difficult task back then was that probably the fixture be the reverse of what it was.
Correct.
But then it's obviously the tougher thing. The good thing though, there is no away goal rule anymore, so that's where Arsenal will have far more liberty. The previous times that we've seen them concede 5 goals at Allianz Arena, remember those were also away goal rule times. Now no longer the thing. You saw them play with a lot of freedom the other day. You don't expect them, or you didn't expect them to at least, but high on confidence. Should be a good match though, but I'll give Bayern Munich the slight edge.
So if you're predicting score lines, what are you going with?
Because now 2-2 doesn't make sense, or it's irrelevant what happened in the first leg. Let's just go ahead and predict not the aggregate but the match score. I am going to go with 3-2 to Bayern.
That's interesting because even I thought it'll be a 1-goal difference, but I'm thinking 2-1. 2-1, I'm giving it to Bayern. Sorry, Arsenal fans. If you can do it, I think it's going to be a little bit of an upset because you'd be beating the German or former German champions, the German powerhouse, at home. And only one London club has done that and claimed the title. Sorry, I had to get in a Chelsea plug there. So that's it. That is our predictions for this big match. Either way, I think you're going to get some gripping football. For Arsenal, the key would be, can they really, turn over that lack of clinical touch that they've been showing recently? That's been their biggest problem. But otherwise, I too agree with Harshit. Bayern probably the slight favourites, but you guys can let us know in the comments what you think would be, let's say, your scoreline predictions, who you think is going to shine, all of that stuff. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell as well. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports the Cap, and if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now though, from Harshit and me, it's goodbye.